will see most of the human race killed off because it is unworthy. It is unworthy of the gift of life.
I don't care what society thinks. They're nothing anyway. They're no better than me.
Until we hear the safe word, we will not stop.
Have you ever thought what it would be like to see a person's head amputated? Think of things so horrible that the human mind cannot imagine them. See all this and more when you see on stage, in person, that crazy mix-up.
I like being set apart from people. I like to be hated.
Safe Word with Jayson Rouse. Testing.
Hey, this is Jayson Rouse, and welcome to the Safe Word Pod. I always pad it out. The pod, Jayson Rouse's Safe Word Podcast. Today's guest is Jayson Thibault.
Hi, everybody.
When I saw your name, I think you're the only other Thibault I've ever heard of. And that there was always argument over the pronunciation of that last name.
Sure.
There's, I don't know if you know a skateboarder. I'm sure it's been brought to your attention by some other skate nerds, but Jim Thibault. Mm-hmm. Is it Thibault, right? Mm-hmm. It was like the way it's spelled. How is it spelled?
It's spelled Thibault. It looks like Thibault. It's a French-Canadian.
Okay. That was our thing, though. It was like we thought it was French. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that name was actually had anything to do with French, but that was, Canadians have a little bit of a grasp on French language, so the lettering and the way it was arranged looked very
I think Canadians pronounce it Thibault.
Okay.
There was a hockey player who played for the Blackhawks, but he was Chicago Blackhawks, but he was Canadian, Jocelyn Thibault.
Maybe
and
that
his
was
is spelled the same.
We had some French-Canadian kids that were telling us the French interpretation of that, so we were both right.
Yeah, I think it's Americanized. It's just Thibault. But if I was, in, the French-speaking Canada, they would pronounce it Thibault.
Yeah. But you'd also...
I get Thibault a lot.
Thibault, yeah, that was
that's how it reads. If you were just a dumb 8-year-old, that just saw that word for the first time, Thibault, I would always get in school. Teachers would pronounce it that way. Thibault, people always want to pronounce the T at the end.
I always get fuckface.
Yeah, you should.
Or get off my aunt.
I've been called that as well. But yeah, Thibault is. And I'm ungoogleable because there's a Y in my first name, so Jayson with the Y. Mm-hmm. And then if you see
ungoogleable. Oh, yeah. It doesn't recognize.
If you just hear me on a podcast without knowing how it's spelled, or if you see me do stand up, you're like, oh, I'm going to look that guy up. Good fucking luck.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. That's how I know you is through the stand up scene in Los Angeles here.
Do you remember when we met? I don't know. I feel like I've always known you. I've known you a very long time.
Yeah.
Probably through Sam Tripoli, probably.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I think probably, I'd say 8 years ago, for sure, 8 years ago. Because I think when Death Squad started to kind of gain momentum around that time, maybe even
that's about
later.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There was a motley crew of that kind of parameter of comedians, and it just turned out all those guys I just knew by association that I was just running into cool people.
Right, yeah.
And, Brian, Red Band, and Tripoli, R.A. yourself, there's half a dozen people of that era of, these are my peers.
Right, yes.
Here in Los Angeles, we're all relatively the same age. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of...
Been doing stand-up about the same amount of time.
Or like taste in music and
I've written suicide letters multiple times.
The same grammatical mistakes. And so, that was the kind of... But the store was a skeleton crew of what it is now.
Oh, it's crazy what it is now. It's crazy,
weird, right?
It is weird.
Because I've been here, actually it'll be almost 10 years to the day that I've been in Hollywood living here.
Almost 19 years to the day.
And when I showed up, you probably even have a even more stranger perspective. 20 or 18 years ago?
Yeah, it was actually
I can't even imagine.
Pretty pat. It was actually kind of like the end of a peak, and then it kind of went to like Ghost Ship.
What's an average lineup 18 years ago?
You know, Joey Diaz, Rogan, Eddie Griffin was there a lot. Mencia was there a lot. Every now and then, a sick Pryor would come in.
Yeah.
Carlin, I saw Carlin and met George Carlin. That's highlight of my life, actually, one of them.
Oh, shit.
And he...
what the hell was he doing there?
What he was doing was he would take the main room for an entire weekend, and he would do like a Thursday... He would do Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the main room. And he would rehearse his next HBO special there. So you literally could watch him the first night. He did it the same way every time. First night, he would have... big note cards, and he would literally almost hold them while he would do it.
Yeah,
and just go through, and so his entire chunks would be on that card.
And people would give him the time that he needed.
Absolutely, and he would go through it. And he literally would.
Everyone just hushed tones.
He would say it. He would say, "Hey, this is what I'm doing."
It's a Jesus Christ experience. He's going through the Bible, making edits.
Yep. And then the next night,
Bible.
The second night, he would have the cards on the stool. And he would do 15, 20 straight minute chunk. And then that bit would get like an applause break. And then he would go, okay, cool, that feels good. And then he would look at a card for like a minute. And then he'd go, okay. And then he would go into another 20 minutes.
Interesting.
And then the third night, Sunday night was just straight through, no notes. He would just do it. And then you would watch
that
it.
Was
then
the
it would,
show.
Then it would go somewhere, wherever, and record it in New York or whatever. And you would see it on HBO 6 months later, and it's verbatim, word for word, airtight, exactly like it was the third night.
Yeah.
Like it's not... He wasn't a dude that was just riffing and doing all these things. He was such a wordsmith.
Yeah, the Einstein aspect of
really
his
incredible.
Comedy.
Really was.
Mathematical.
And he was very nice and gracious when I met him. And, I was young at that time. Hell, I was probably...
Old enough to fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was old enough to fuck. So I had to be 13. No. So I was in my 20s, and I was like, fuck, man, what am I going to say to him?
What if George poured a bill on you,
right?
And pulled his hog out and says, "You want to be in the business, kid?"
I'd have been in the business. I'd have been a lot more successful than I am right now, Jay. So, and he was in the hallway outside the main room, where you can go up to the belly room or that. Mm-hmm. So he was just standing there. I don't remember if he was looking at anything, but it was early and he was just by himself, and I'm like, fuck.
Did he have the same kind of effect on the store that Dave Chappelle does now at that time? 18 years ago?
Yeah. You could tell, when he was there, you could tell there was like magic. And, when he would show up, everybody would be like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And I just walked up to him, and I didn't know what to say. I totally felt like a dipshit. And I was like, hey, I just, I wanted to let you know I'm a huge fan of yours. And you're a major influence, and I just want to say I'm excited to see you tonight, and it's it's an honor to actually meet you and see you in person. I don't want to bother you. And he goes, oh no, you're not bothering me at all. He's thank you very much for saying that. He goes, do you have a spot tonight? And I'm like, in my head, I was like, George Carlin just called me a comedian.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I always remember that when George Carlin said that, and it just was talking to me like a regular comedian. Literally one of my top 5 comedic influences of all time.
Mount Rushmore.
Absolutely. I mean, when he pretty much, him and Pryor, pretty much created what we now know as modern day regular stand-up.
Yeah. Well, even though this hipster aspect of the comedy community seems to... with Lenny Bruce stylistically with no content whatsoever.
Well, there's that sort of thing, but those guys didn't modernize it, streamline it, take it to the public. That was such a snooty San Francisco book nerd kind of anti-establishment kind of angle. And Pryor and Carlin made it a household thing.
Yeah.
Made you go, holy shit, let's go watch some stand-up comedy at
Be
you know,
entertained.
at the Chuckle Hut in fucking Des Moines or wherever the fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, some people use
It wasn't
more of a soapbox.
Yep.
Than others, you know. I have no political.
Even that Bill Hicks kind of era is still a bit of like, to me, which I loved Bill Hicks, it still is like a bit of an elitist, snobbish sort of thing to it.
The books nerds.
Yes.
They're the book nerds. They're the script keepers. And,
yes, yeah.
They're just smarter.
Smarter. Exactly.
I tap out, you know, I really love comedy in so many different styles and avenues of it, and I like to look at it from even why I don't like it and why I do like it. And some people just have the most whitish trash, you know, uneducated, and then have this Eminem approach of comedy where it's the language and the truth to it is very potent.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in general, like, I don't want to make it so like secular and just about stand-up, because I love all forms of comedy. I love sketch comedy. I love, you know, comedy films. I like improv.
You like Jim Carrey?
I like Jim Carrey a lot.
I like Jim Carrey a lot.
Me too. I met him at the store.
I like him. Yeah, they were
when he was there for the Dying Up Here thing. Yeah.
Yes,
and he was super nice and cool. Way taller than I thought he was going to be. I mean, I'm not a short person. I'm like 6'1". He was taller than me. I was like looking up to him. I'm like, ooh, I didn't picture you to be 6'3". He was wearing heels.
I love Jim.
Was a very, very nice man. Hugged me. All I said to him,
I would cry.
I felt very kind of like, holy shit. He was walking up, and I knew he grew up there like we did, you know. Yeah. And he hasn't been there in a very long time. And when he walked around the corner, he's coming through the parking lot
by himself.
Yeah, he was just by himself.
By himself.
Yeah, he just showed up by himself.
20 years later, he shows up
and was involved in the roast battle. And he was up there.
That. Yeah, fuck.
And he goes,
fuck.
I know, dude. It was great. He goes,
I hated myself.
They introduced him, and he goes,
Jim Carrey?
Yeah.
People must have went nuts.
They went nuts. He was just sitting up by the judges. And then he goes,
what the fuck?
He goes, last time I was here, I was selling weed.
And that's the truth.
Probably, and the place went nuts. But when he walked in through the parking lot, I was just standing there, just finished smoking a cigarette or something, and he walks right by, and it's just me there. You know what I mean? It's just me there.
You've got to say something.
And I said, hey, I go, holy shit, good to see you. Welcome. I go, welcome back to the Comedy Store. And he goes, oh, thanks, and then hugged me. And I was like, holy shit, Jim Carrey just hugged me.
I'm going to start crying.
Yeah.
It's been emotional.
That was when he had like the big beard. Did you watch his Norm Macdonald?
Yes.
Wasn't that fantastic?
It was awesome.
It really felt like you were hanging out with him.
Totally. And Jim's destroying the set.
Yep.
There's no
throwing coffee to people.
And Norm's, everybody's invested in both ends of it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I love Norm's podcast. Adam's a good friend of mine who's on that podcast. If anybody hasn't watched it.
I told Adam, I think years ago.
The coolest gig to just sit there and.
I go, what's it like? He goes, dude, like they have massive Letterman.
Seinfeld.
Like casually, like.
One of my favorites was Bob Einstein. Super Dave Osborne was one of the best ones, and that guy is such a great joke writer. I have loved him since I was a child.
Norm and him is probably two perfect storms coming together as one, because they shot that in my hometown.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Super Dave Osborne spun off Bizarre.
Absolutely, totally right. Yep.
Was shot, and I know
John Biner
was huge at the store because I remember seeing him. And then they were shooting episodes in front of a live audience. They shot all the trailers, like the one where Super Dave Osborne falls down the canyon.
Oh yeah,
my mother's house is at the bottom of that hill.
That is amazing, dude. I used to have a VHS tape of just the spinoff of the Bizarre, I believe it was called. And it was so Super Dave Osborne got his own show on Showtime, and it would just be half hour with Fuji Hakido and all that stuff.
It was
I had a VHS
weird.
tape that just said, I can still see it today in my head, in black Sharpie, it said Super Dave, don't record over.
Yeah.
And it was just every episode I would stop it and then record the next one. So I had
Marathon.
At least
There's early
a whole VHS tape
Netflix.
Basically, yeah.
You had Netflix.
Dude, there was the one where he was like going to do this super awesome slam dunk, and it's going to raise him up to this thing, and it's going to launch him in the air, and he's going to do a backflip and all this sort of thing, and do the greatest slam dunk of all time. And so then the stunts would always go wrong. So and we're going to slowly raise me up to the face of the rim, slams his face right through the backboard. Yeah.
I remember all that stuff. Well, Bizarre was like an American version of Benny Hill.
Exactly what it was, yes.
Right?
That's what it was, yeah.
There was a good chance you were going to see some boobies.
Yeah.
There was boobs.
Yep. And it was on because it was cable. It was on cable.
There was full frontal nudity.
They had one sketch that I remember that I loved, which was
they're always like pasty, white fancy.
It was outtakes of pornography. You know what I mean?
On Bizarre?
Yeah. So it
was Bizarre.
Mm-hmm. And it was outtakes of pornography. It was so funny, and like nobody was doing anything like that on regular TV, So it was really one of the first sketch kind of variety shows on cable where you could use profanity, where you could show a boob if it moved this joke forward or whatever. And it'd be like this girl would be like, "Fuck me harder, fuck me harder, fuck me harder."
Oh, it's explicit.
Line.
Yeah.
And then you see somebody with a script. Fuck me harder. Okay, cool. Let's do another take. You know what I mean? It's like outtakes of pornography. It was so funny.
They had the one.
And I'm 12. It's killing me. I'm 12. That's the funniest joke you've ever heard.
It was a very, very weird. Did you remember the pigeon one with the statues and they're in the park?
No. What was it?
There's a couple and they're painted, and they comes back and they go. Oh no! They get granted a wish to be if you could do one thing, you're a statue. You've been frozen in time. Could you do one thing? Anything's the limit. He grants a wish, and they come back, and they go, "You have another wish. There's two of you." And then he goes, "You want to hold down the pigeon this time, and I'm going to shit on it."
Yeah, that's funny.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, what kind of kid shows did you? This was late night. This was like, single parent. Television, 3 a.m. on a weekday, watching TV, all this fucked up, anything from a black and white chase cop movie to some very deranged kid show with puppets or something like that. Right after, there would be I think I got a very, Clockwork Orange
right
of television, right? There was everything from really graphic violence to things that really made an impression.
Sure. I mean, and we're about the same age. We didn't have like unlimited. We can watch anything you want, like you do right now. Like if I'm in the mood for anything, I can just find it.
You'd
no problem.
have to watch what was coming down the pipe.
Yeah, you had like
a couple
7 or 8
options.
choices.
Yeah,
and
you got information, commercial. There was no way of fast forwarding.
No,
and you would watch some of these commercials were like 5 minutes long.
You know what I remember being, speaking of commercials, obsessed with at roughly that age. Preteen, 10 to 13 kind of era. Was late night was infomercials. Yeah. And especially the real local ones. And my sister and I used to prank call them.
Okay.
And because they would literally, you could see your call getting called in while they're selling whatever they're selling.
Put your name up.
It was basically like Home Shopping Network kind of show, but it was
10
local.
items.
But it was local. It was, you know what I mean? So
Marjorie's
it was just this weird
quilt.
It was just weird stuff. So my sister, and I remember she would always have, like, her friend, we're close in age, so her friends would have like a sleepover, be like 2,
This would be a funny segment for your show. I hate to get off topic, but
sure.
You having a live auction with like glasses clinking together and selling. We got a hand painted ivory swan here.
That is funny.
And then callers call in.
Sure.
Anyway.
Yeah, that is actually really funny. So we would call and to make her, friends laugh and try, I'm 13, they're 12. I'm trying to flirt with these little 12-year-old girls, what I mean? To try to make them laugh. I would prank call to the show repeatedly.
Sure.
Repeatedly. And then we kept trying to there's one guy you would only see his hands. And you're like, you got to show Dave, whatever his name is. Please, we're dying to see Dave. You know what I mean? We're big. We watch the show all the time, whatever. And then they finally...
The hand guy?
Yeah.
You get him to come on camera?
They finally cut to his face, dude, and he was like, "Brr." He was like, there's a reason Dave was never on camera.
Oh, no, Dave.
Dude, his eyes were so close together, and he had like this really big like clown nose almost.
Toxic Avenger.
Fuck, dude. Me, my sister, and her two friends were just laying on the floor laughing. They're like, he finally got Dave on camera. And when they finally showed him, he's just like waving before like a commercial break. Dude, he's like, both of his eyes were so close to this giant nose. We're like, oh, that's why Dave. That's why when we see Dave's perfect hands.
He's got hands for radio.
He's got the hands for radio for sure. So I do remember infomercials. I always watched. For some reason, I don't know why.
I think a lot of us were, they had like a
The
cult,
Pocket Fisherman. I remember that one.
Yeah, cult followings.
Absolutely, Ronco. Yeah.
I don't know how many times I'd be coming off of some bender watching beef jerky dehydrators.
Absolutely.
Doing
Quick Hook Grill.
The death sweats in a hotel room.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, because as a comedian, a lot of people, when you're getting up to go to work, there's a good chance a lot of us are just going to bed.
Mm-hmm. Like my sister, speaking of her again, she has like a regular day job and she works very hard and does very well for herself, but she's literally like at work at like 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So she's getting up at like 4:30 to get ready for work. I usually go to bed around 4:30.
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually just, even if I don't go out and gig, even because your body's used to that.
Yeah, and you find if you mess with that compass, it fucks you.
Yeah.
And that's why when I travel, if there's a significant, more than a 2 or 3 hour time difference, I'll need a couple of days to kind of realign myself.
Oh, sure. Or when you come back, like if you're gone for 4 or 5 days, that's just enough time to get used to that time zone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like right when my body naturally I'm going to St. Louis in 2 weeks, which is like 2 hour time difference. I'm there for 3 days. By the time my body is used to that 2 hour time difference, I now have to get used to my natural time difference and come back here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You got to kind of have a little foresight and plan it out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You played St. Louis before?
Yeah.
See, I've been here for 10 years. I've been to California and New York.
But I mean, I grew up in the Midwest area, so I had actually played St. Louis before I even moved here.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in Chicago, which is only 5 hours from St. Louis. So like Chicago, Cleveland, Indianapolis, St. Louis, Peoria, Cleveland.
But see, there must be a pretty...
all that, Cincinnati. When you factor in Green Bay, Milwaukee, Detroit, all of those cities are within 6 hours of each other by car.
So there must be like a pretty substantial touring schedule in that area. Like you can work every weekend.
There's people that just live in the Midwest that you'll never ever know of. You know what I mean? That have a wife and a kid and a mortgage and they're in their 40s and they're just headliners in that 5-state area.
Do a few corporates around Christmas time.
Absolutely, exactly right.
And probably do,
maybe local
bills.
commercials, do local commercials,
radio
local
hosts,
acting, all that little
mall
shit.
Openings, cruise ships.
Where you can make, if you work that hustle on that, you can make $50,000 a year just doing that. You know what I mean? You could. And that's it. And you're like, cool, man. I mean,
you
just
sell yourself
gigging.
out for $50,000.
Yeah, basically.
What an asshole.
But it's like all you're doing is stand up. You're not working. I mean, there's people that make less than that as trash men.
Dog. You're the baloney.
Yeah, basically. But it's like you're like, hey, look, I don't want to go to L.A. or New York and get in the back of the line. I'm not 23. I have a wife. I have kids.
Oh, if you're married,
yeah,
I can't even. We don't even talk the same language. I have a difficult time with friends of mine that have girlfriends. They get their girlfriends. I can hear them yell in the background. When they're on the phone, hey, Rouse. Oh, no. There's no fucking way. Is he back in town?
Right.
Yeah. I don't do anything. I just don't.
What do you mean?
I don't do anything. If anybody wants to be like me,
right.
I have no problem with that.
Right. Yeah, I don't even know what I want. I really don't. I really don't.
Yeah, but
Sometimes I think about that and I'm like, I don't know.
What does it mean to want something? You have a focus and a direction.
Yeah, I don't know.
You still got to deal with life in between that. You can want whatever you want.
Sure. No, I mean career-wise.
You could want to be born with two pussies on both sides of your neck so they're gill-like, but they're really just bloody cunts.
No matter how you slice it. I guess you're right there. No, I mean career-wise. I'm not like, I don't like, I want to do this. So many people are so mapped out of what they want to achieve. I don't even really know what that is I want to achieve. I want to work in comedy. I want to make people laugh.
Can I ask you this? How many of those times, because you know that there's people coming from Illinois or all these
everywhere,
flyover states or all over the world, literally, just meticulously set up all these things. I'm going to do this, and this is my plan, and and blah, 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 and I'm going to do this, and everything's going to come together, and I'll be a star. And then you cut 6 months in a year.
Oh, yeah.
Fucked.
Yeah, and there's spitch on the dicks for nickels on fucking Santa Monica Boulevard.
With the asshole.
Yep, the old hand job with your mouth.
It's terrible. It's bad. Like,
do you want to be a star? Do you want to be a star?
You see people who have the fake smiles, but they're you can see it. It's all falling apart behind it. It's all facade. Hey.
Do you want to be a star?
A star?
Yes.
Fish. No.
I don't either.
I'm here out of spite.
I don't.
I could go and
I wouldn't want that.
half a dozen other places in the world and enjoy myself. But I know they don't want me here.
I would want some of the things that would come with that, but I don't want, that's not.
No, well, that's I think that's when you see people that are clearly set themselves up for that kind of posturing, they red carpet themselves so much that it's gross. There's been a lot of preconceived nonsense, and it can be when you're somebody who's lives in a kind of a Fight Club environment,
right?
Like the store, and somebody
which is what that is
on rollerblades, going, "Hey guys." It's really cool to be in Hollywood.
You're right.
If you guys met my manager, you're like, this guy is done.
Right.
You're done.
But there's something about, like, the hopefulness that a lot of those people seem to have. Like it's
blind faith.
Blind faith, yeah.
Dude, and that's why they're here.
Sure.
It's blind faith.
Isn't that why we're here?
Yeah.
Agreed.
I came because I hate the cold temperatures so much.
I mean, when I was in Chicago, and I knew this was...
What month were you in Chicago?
It was winter. It was about to be winter. It was October. October 1st is when I moved. Well, November 1st was when I got here. So I left
it's just
3 days earlier.
Take a shit.
But I mean, I grew up in that weather. I know how cold it is. And I was like, basically, I dropped out of college, moved to Chicago.
What were you in college for?
I was
pussy.
Basically booze and girls. I didn't know what I wanted, so I just went to college because that's what everybody did. I was going to.
You talked to any of those people?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of them I'm still good friends with.
Okay.
I was going to teach astronomy in high school. I was going to be a high school astronomy teacher.
Shop.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to be a high school astronomy teacher, but then started doing stand up in college. Realized that's what I wanted to do. Dropped out of college, moved to Chicago. Was working there, Second City. And taking classes at Second City.
Well, you must know the relationship with Toronto.
Oh, sure, absolutely. City. Big time, yeah. I mean, it's there and Chicago, those two. And then I was going to move to either New York or L.A. I didn't know which one. And my buddy who I was roommates with there, still a good friend of mine, lives out here now still. He's like, hey, man, he's like, I want to take you out to dinner. Dude, that's never good. 100% I think this guy's about to come out of the closet on me. Or kick me out. Or like, dude, we can't be roommates for whatever reason. I mean, there's no reason for him to say that, but.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, that's never good. Hey, we need to talk. That's never, ever anything good.
Over dinner.
And
it better be good news.
Hey, I want to take you out to dinner. I want to talk to you about something. That's never. It's never. No girl has ever said to me, hey, we need to talk. And it's good news.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No.
So, but it turned out that he was like, he just took a job in L.A. And he was like, hey, you totally can move with me. That'd be great. but I understand if you want to stay here. I had a girlfriend at the
You
time.
were in New York.
No, I was in Chicago.
Oh, in Chicago.
And he didn't know I was like already planning on moving to L.A. or New York, and I didn't really know anybody in either place. So I was kind of researching it on my own, and like in the next year, I was going to move to one or the other because I was young enough that I didn't want to be that 50-year-old headliner that lived in Chicago and never got anything above that.
Yeah,
and I pretty much because I knew a lot of those guys. And occasionally they'd get a Comedy Central spot or on like Premium Blend or one of those kind of shows. And I'm like, oh, that's my buddy, because I was the young comic. I was like the 20, 21, and all those guys would let me feature for them.
Yeah.
So
it's usually the kind of.
But they never. But I didn't. And I was kind of like. For a while, I'm like, man, these guys are living the dream. But then after a while, it's kind of like
these guys are on suicide watch.
Yes, exactly. And so I was like, I gotta go.
And you have to be
one way
crazy.
or the other. I gotta go one way or the other, and just see if I can bang with the best, basically.
Sure.
And I have nothing to lose. And so he, unbeknownst to me, took a job as an editor at some company out here in L.A. And he's like, I'm moving to L.A. in a month. You're more than welcome to come with me. If not, then you can just take over the apartment, whatever. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
And
what year is this?
This was in 1997. 1998.
I just
1998.
Back from Vancouver.
That was September of 98.
No. Yeah, fuck. I've been going through some old archival
Suicide
video of some old shows and stuff, and it is weird.
Oh, I was thinking about that. Like, now everything is so digital. Like, we used to have VHS tapes. I hate to sound like that. I used to walk uphill in the snow to school.
Oh, you've lived long enough to have a little more perspective.
But it's so crazy now. I mean, now you can...
Oh, it's my birthday tomorrow.
Is it really your birthday tomorrow? Is that true?
Yeah.
No shit. Nice.
Actually, I'll put this
New
out
Year's
on my
Eve is your birthday?
Yeah.
Wow.
56.
Of course New Year's Eve is your birthday. If anybody else was born on New Year's Eve, you're fucking stupid.
I was born
ass.
the year Clockwork Orange came out.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I wonder what movies came out. Steamboat Willie came out when I was born. The first talkies.
I love, like, my mother used to take me to Disney movies, and watch all these Disney classics in the film. And so I always enjoyed...
You know what I, surprisingly to people, have a history of watching all of the time?
Two guys fuck in the parking lot?
From my point of view. It's more one guy getting fucked in the parking lot. And I wear those glasses like bicyclists wear that has a little rear view mirror on it so I can see him behind me, loading me bending me over and loading me like a shotgun.
Bicycle sunglasses with a little hand mirror on the side, the dental mirror. So sneaking up on me.
I can watch Boxcar Willie slap that hobo dick into me. Musicals. No, I grew up because my family, because I had a lot of women in the house, they would always watch musicals. So pretty much every musical I've seen.
Yeah.
I get musical songs stuck in my head like any regular gay man does.
I saw Nutcracker. And the year I decided to leave New York.
In Broadway you saw the
play.
The
big one.
Sure.
And it was pretty impressive.
Oh yeah, when you see those huge productions, you're like, holy shit. I mean, the Book of Mormon was absolutely spectacular.
I haven't seen it. Is it still running on the Boulevard?
No.
No.
But it'll be back. No, I'm sure it'll be back. Absolutely spectacular.
Make the effort for that. It's a full production.
Wonderful.
Huge.
Oh, it's mind-blowingly hilarious.
Do those guys just crank the best shit out?
It's pretty amazing. Pretty prolific.
How?
I mean, you factor
What are your... Because clearly the underline is humor.
Yep.
But the weight of it just works.
Yep. And, they're very smart. They're very good at disguising.
What are those discussions like?
Yeah,
it's two mad scientists. Mm-hmm. There's probably not even a lot of talking.
Right.
There's probably a lot of nodding and this kind of...
You know who writes with them a lot is... Who's the one guy from Saturday Night Live that's... God, he's so funny. People say I look like him. I get his name a lot. But I'll think of his name. But he's kind of like the silent third that writes to these guys. He actually wrote the episode about The episode about Kanye West. Where it was like the fish stick episode, if you remember that.
Yeah.
He actually wrote that. Oh,
that's that's people discuss that regularly.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it must be. And I guess they just go in like retreats. They just
kill people on that show.
Oh, sure.
Like
unbelievable.
How that is the forefront of all great. What is it? Contextual, like present, shit that's happening, cutting edge humor, cutting. It's so they murder people, they kill them, they pull them inside out and make them look like poo.
Like who would you see maybe like at the Comedy Store or anywhere, just around Hollywood, be like, holy crap, I can't even believe I'm talking. This person's here right now. Like who would
in comedy or just in general?
Both comedy and in general. Like who? Because you get. I don't want to say jaded, but I could, certain celebrities come
Jim,
by. Wouldn't give a shit.
Yeah, Jim for sure, because he just more or less he indirectly gave me a kind of a handbook of what to do, and more or less saying you don't really need anything from the outside world. If you have something to show, then just show it. And that was he has no idea like. There's no. He probably gets into a lot of situations where people are unloading all this baggage on him. I can't even imagine. Like I get anxiety around being around super famous people. I don't like it. But as far as awe, probably some sort of like, I don't know. Like I've gotten a chance to brush shoulders with a lot of my heroes and people I've respected in the industry, but most of the guys that I would be in awe of are dead.
Which would be really crazy to see them now.
So anybody I really enjoyed in my youth that's dead now.
Jimmy Schubert once said, he's a funny comic if you don't know Jimmy Schubert.
I love Jimmy Schubert.
What a nice man.
Check out Jimmy Schubert. He's an awesome dude.
Really great guy. He once said that
gnarly, like seen some shit.
Oh yeah, he's up with Mitzi Shore.
Yeah,
I mean he's been around that long.
Yeah,
but he said you should always treat famous people like they're not famous, and treat people that aren't famous like they are. And I was like, oh, that's dope. I've never done that, but I'm sure that's beneficial.
You see, like, who's a famous female celebrity right now?
I don't know.
Lady Gaga?
Sure.
Is that still relevant?
I imagine so.
Oh, but you can't pull your dick out. What do you think about that? Because I like to get old Leatherface out
too.
for a rattle once in a while.
Me too. I like to take the dog for a walk. But yeah, it is different now that you're just like, oh shit. Because, I don't know. There's ways. You clearly would know if I'm joking if I do it versus like I have some girl cornered in some dark closet.
Yeah, it's like,
and I'm like, look at this.
You got to make it. It's got to have the same effect as a rubber chicken.
Yeah. And mine does. Trust me.
The smell and the look.
Everything.
You've got a dew claw on the back of your nutsack.
I sure do.
That's gross. Yeah, you can't. Well, you can shit.
I can, yeah.
Are you on Snapchat?
No. I'm not on Snapchat.
No one wants to go on Snapchat anymore.
Are you on Snapchat?
I'm the log father.
Oh, of course you are. Of course you are. It's too much for me. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, pretty much where I draw the line.
Yeah. What's your favorite? For me, I'm not like I don't really enjoy self-indulgent blog type stuff. So I do a little kind of photo journalism with the Instagram, and it allows me to stream video when I need to or do some promotional stuff. Twitter's, pretty limited, and I use it for more promotional tools.
Same.
And Facebook's an address book.
Right.
YouTube is a necessary evil. And that's about it, right?
I agree with you on everything you just said.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
Now, you've been a part of and are on a bunch of shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we pretty much started...
But your show...
When Red Band started Death Squad, we were all, like you said, we were the first ones there doing that just because we were all friends with Brian.
You guys were the second burst.
Mm-hmm.
There was kind of a butterfly effect.
Yep. Now you look back where you're like, wow, all those people that were from, like Tripoli and Sam and Sam Tripoli and Ari Shafir and I do Punch Drunk together.
I heard it gets pretty mean.
It gets pretty mean. There's a big hot dog episode that's about to have to happen.
So you do a sports show called Punch Drunk Sports.
Yeah, which is basically
All Things Comedy.
It's on All Things Comedy. Yeah, I have 2 podcasts on All Things Comedy. Punch Drunk is basically if Howard Stern had a sports show. I would describe it. Sort of like that. We talk sports a little bit. We try to. We have horrific bets that we have to pay off when we in this bag of bets. People tweet them at us.
You're almost atypical LA comic. Like you do a variety of different things. There's some people that are, in different parts of the world where they're. You're in Hollywood. This is where they make TV and movies.
Mm-hmm.
So you find yourself in work-related, associated to your craft, but there's also you find
it's diversifying is basically
the normal job outside of this place is very different. Like,
you think people think that and they listen to this and they hear all of our podcasts and they follow us on social media or they're fans of our comedy and yourself, myself, any of us, but you're in Canada or Indiana or wherever and you're a podcast fan. You romanticize what our lives are like here in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And literally, we do stand-up probably added together. I bet I get about 40 minutes of stage time a week.
Yeah.
In over 5 shows.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
The rest of your time is like doing podcasts, creating new shows, writing a script, writing a sketch comedy show, doing all these things to try to get something else going because you can't survive on 40 minutes of stand-up, $20 a set, 5 sets.
No, the math is there. It's not
Now, do we get to do stand-up with the likes of Chappelle and on all these famous great comics?
Yeah.
Sure we do.
Yeah.
But guess what? They go to their house in the clouds.
Yeah.
They get driven by a driver to their house in the clouds. And
you're on a razor scooter going through dog shit.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's really extreme.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so extreme. Yeah, there's no middle ground here. You're either super awesome or super shit.
That's it. You're either faking it till you make it, or you're about to quit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When people ask me on Facebook or they'll message me, DM me, fans or just people that are curious about comedy, and they're like, "Hey, I'm 20 years old and I want to start doing comedy. Like, do you have any advice?" I say the same thing every time. Be prepared to be broke for a decade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Whether couch surfing, whatever. I'm talking about
Oh, yeah. The first few years I was here, it was like to come from the London comedy scene in Europe and UK and to show up here, it was a huge fuck.
Yep.
Oh.
And some of the best years for me, some of the best years for me was when I did have a day job and I was just learning comedy and I couldn't do a 10-minute set without repeating jokes. And I'd been doing comedy for 2 or 3 years and I was meeting all the people that now are my lifelong friends, like the Tripoli's and Ari's and Duncan Trussell and everybody that I'm friends with now. I've been friends with them for 18 years. We started doing comedy together. Mm-hmm. But some of those early years were the best when I had a day job and I was just hanging out at open mics and meeting everybody and learning, that's how, I can actually get a laugh with a facial expression at the end of that joke. The little nuances. Once you start feeding yourself from it, once the art form that you love is also now responsible for your being able to see a doctor, having a car, food.
Yeah.
Once your art form is responsible for your livelihood, it changes a little bit.
Definitely. There's your breathing room.
Yep.
This is a very...
But the love for it becomes, it's not just a passion project now, and it's not a hobby anymore. So you become a lot more serious about it. There's a sense of urgency in keeping the wheels going than there is when you have a day job and you're kind of doing stand up. You can be like, oh fuck it, I haven't done a set in 2 months. If I don't do a set for 2 months, I'm fucked.
That's why it's so gross when you see hobbyists. You're so invested into it, and these half-assed people kind of shuffle into the mix.
And they want to be sitcom actors, and they have a tight 10 minutes,
and
they wear their best leather coat every single time.
Terrible.
And they do,
Terrible.
And they're not willing to fail.
Like
Stand-up is such a willingness to fail. You have to almost be a masochist to want to do this.
I don't wear...
You really do, man.
Totally. But it's in a way that I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I take the beatings.
Absolutely. I mean, I always would. I would have. The fact that you can get paid doing this somehow is crazy to me. Because this is what I was always doing and getting in trouble for.
Oh, I've turned, all my so-called downfalls into gold dust.
Sort of.
But it's perspective. If you, let people's perceptions of you dictate how you feel, then you're going to be subjected to those politics, even though it has nothing to do with you.
Absolutely.
And it gets to be That's just why I think your parents say don't hang out with losers and shit like that. Hang out with the wrong crowds and things like that.
Yeah.
You come and start to assimilate your environment.
Yeah, and I think that's like... I think a lot of comics are like empaths. We're very...
What's an empath?
Somebody that has like... they're highly susceptible to other people's energy and absorb that. Like if I'm around three negative...
Is that a medical word or more of a witchy, crystal-y word?
I mean, it's just somebody who's...
both naturopath.
No, it's both.
Or something, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of both, but it's just you're...
I'm definitely hyper sensitive.
Yep. You're just like ooze empathy. So if I'm around three alcoholics that are fucking constantly fighting,
hilarious.
No. But if I'm in a house of raging alcoholics and both my roommates are alcoholics, I'm going to be drinking a lot more because I take that on.
Oh yeah.
So I do have to be around. Try to put myself around like the Tate Fletchers of the world, people that have great energy and that are very positive. Because if I'm not around that...
It's a voice of reason with an identity.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You can always look and go, all this bullshit that I'm trying to convince myself in, and then when you see the person that doesn't subscribe to bullshit, and you're like, check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Exactly, yep.
And you're like, it's like a burden. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I was about to make a series of really bad decisions.
Well, let's say I'm working with somebody that's very indecisive and can't make a decision on anything. Well, then
very impatient.
Not only do I get impatient, but then I also start noticing that I'm becoming indecisive and I can't pull the trigger. And I'm like, maybe you're right. Maybe we should change that. Where it's like, I'm just naturally, I have a lot of empathy and I start to take on other people's characteristics. So if I have the awareness about that about myself, and then I go, oh, okay, well then I'll put myself around positive people, around productive people, around honest people,
It sounds so weird, but it's very simple, but it's so hard to execute.
Absolutely,
it's very hard to execute
because you don't. It's not a conscious thing that I'm doing. Yeah. I don't sit around and like, oh, I'm consciously doing this. I just find myself, man, I've been around this one person a lot lately, and I'm starting to get like angry or whatever. I'm starting to
there's a negative effect on my life for sure. And
there are people that I have to keep at an arm's length, and sometimes you're surprised at who they are. Sometimes you're like, oh wow, I didn't actually thought this person was positive for me, but it turns out they're not.
Yeah,
so I have to have.
They have qualities or things that you.
It's not like telling people to fuck off. It's just like, oh, I have to limit the amount of time that you get around my brain. Yeah, exactly.
Or people that probably the least painful.
And it's always the people that say they don't want anything that clearly want something. You know what I mean? It's like, that's always the case. When someone's like, hey, man, I'm not a racist. Okay.
Yeah, there's a but.
Sure.
There's when the buts,
Why would you even say that then?
But yeah. Your introduction, you've totally discredited yourself before you even told me. Now I don't even want to hear it. Actually, I want to get it on tape.
Right. I was at the Comedy Store the other night, and I was talking to this girl who she seemed pretty worldly.
You're the only person I've ever had on the show that knows well enough to start talking when there's a lull in the show. I'll leave people hanging.
Well, this reminded me of
and they'll look at me and I'll be all quiet for long. You're like, come on, let's get it up. Let's make some magic.
It's a podcast, baby.
You're like a kennel dog of podcasting.
Yes. Exactly right. That's exactly what it is. So I'm talking to this girl. Now, this is the first time this ever happened to me. But she's seemed worldly. She lived somewhere else and lived in a couple different countries, but she definitely looked younger. And she goes, guess how old I am? And I go, you look young, but I'm going to say 28. And she goes, I just turned 21. And I was like,
you just made my dick move without touching it.
Yeah.
My lady.
My lady. And I was like, ooh, in my mind, I'm like, that's pretty damn young. And then,
why didn't you talk through your teeth?
she goes, how old do you think I am? And she goes, she's 40. And I go, I just turned 45. And she goes, oh, cool. My dad's 43.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, he's going to have to go after me.
Wow.
And I'm not wearing a condom, so you tell the old man.
Then I'm like giving him a noogie while I'm like, yeah.
Smell my fingers.
Calling him a whippersnapper. You old whippersnapper.
You roll the condom off and throw it in his face and walk out the door.
Right.
He's got a load.
I never was more turned off by a 21-year-old in my life. I was like, oh my God, you literally just said probably the only thing you shouldn't say. I mean, of everything she could have said.
Oh, fucking hell.
Oh, my dad is 2 years younger than you. I'm like, ugh. The fact that I could the fact that I could have a
2 fingers in
23-year-old kid is insane.
Yeah, I know. I have friends that have kids that are in their 20s.
I was talking to this girl last night.
My friend just posted today. His kid's 20.
I mean, and
my career's 20.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, exactly. I mean, she was born. I started doing stand-up. That's insane. But where we're at, there's a new crop of 22-year-olds that come here every year. And then there's a new crop of, 40-year-olds that leave and say, fuck it. There's an influx of dream havers and dream killers and timelines.
People look at, okay, I'm going to be dead here. How long do I want to live like?
You start doing that. I've done that several times. I romanticize moving back to Chicago and doing whatever all the time. I do.
Boo.
Sometimes I romanticize it. I do. Because sometimes you're just like, fuck this.
I don't want to be the only guy on the patio. And
you won't be. It'll be
me. I'll pull out my catheter and spray it up girls' faces when they come.
But it's, you find yourself like, damn, man. Like last night I was talking to this girl and then she's like 25 and I'm like, don't I be fucking around with a 25-year-old? Of course I don't.
Not without a video camera.
Of course.
You want to remember that.
No. I want it so it's legal.
For the court
so it's
case.
Legal. Look, she is consenting.
I have friends that videotape all their sex.
Really? For what purpose?
For safety issues.
Are you kidding me?
Or he's a deviant.
I think it's the latter.
You think he's a deviant?
Well, what safety purposes would he have to?
I think he had an issue with some sort of assault. Consent. So now he videotapes all the girls he has sex with.
Well, that's not creepy at all. Do they know?
No.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that's what's going to blow up in his face.
Secret. There's nothing secret. It used to be a weird thing to be naked.
What do you mean?
Like, there's so much shit on the internet and like at your phone. Like we were talking about age, and Bizarre was a TV show we were
Yeah.
watching as children, and the flash of a woman's breast, that would kind of hang on you.
Oh, sure.
You mark that. That's a lady, boobie. Okay. Now,
Oh, yeah.
I got pictures on my phone with a bottomless cunt.
Dude, it's unbelievable now. I mean, I can't even
Have
imagine.
I showed you my buddy's asshole?
Yeah, several times. You texted it to me twice today. 2 times you texted me that today.
Shout out Boomer Phillips,
Yep.
the gaper.
course.
It's huge.
I mean, yeah, you could definitely.
Mud whiskers.
You can fly a fucking drone right into that thing. So.
It's so bad.
Do you feel like.
Boomer's asshole.
Do you feel like it's the accessibility of content that has caused this rift of intimate aggression?
I think people are organizing themselves for what they think are justified causes with no foresight.
What I could see when I was
direction.
12 years old, what I could see and had access to when I was 12 years old
Lesbian
was
pornography.
extremely limited.
Yeah.
Just because it didn't. I mean, you could get a Jugs magazine or
Playboys,
different things like that. But right now, any 12-year-old with a cell phone
crossed over pornography
can look up anything
Yeah.
that they want. So there is no mystery to it. There is no
romanticizing.
Yes, there is no. I'm going to spend the time and. Try to get to know this person and then maybe get the chance to touch a boob.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's you just text
Anal.
another 13-year-old,
Anal.
send me a picture of your asshole. You know what I mean?
I know, that's an
so
open
that
line.
in between the two, there's all this
Different time. We're just the guy on the horse looking at the guy in the car.
basically, kind
Except
of.
the guy on the horse is facing the wrong way, and the guy in the car is getting sucked off by a donkey.
Yep. Basically, yeah. You just,
Right.
I was just saying that to my mom right before this podcast. It's funny you mentioned that.
Sucked off by a donkey in a Model T Ford.
Yep. Yeah, that is kind of what it is, I guess. But it's I don't know. I think a lot of that is from this, all this Louis C.K. stuff, and everybody's getting zinged. It's so funny that so many of these are in 1978, he grabbed my ass at a high school dance. That's what we did at high school dances.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's when you see old racist people.
You've been mad for 45 years about him grabbing your ass?
Yeah.
Get the fuck over it a little bit.
Now
I'm not talking about the ones that rape. I'm not talking about I'm talking about all these little minutia ones where you're like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Come on.
Come on my back.
I mean, we didn't even call it sexual harassment, but I've definitely been, girls that I have not had an interest in have been aggressive towards me. I'm not suing them.
Yeah.
I'm just ignoring them, and then they eventually quit.
Yeah.
If they're grabbing my cock and all this sort of stuff, I'm going to say something, but.
Hog hammer grabbers.
Hog hammer grabbers.
I've only had my dick grabbed a few times.
I mean, I remember once when we were doing the Naughty Show with Sam Tripoli, and I was doing this character that I would always have a sock on my dick.
Yes.
They think a girl's going to come out of the back and give them a lap dance. They want a lap dance, and then it's my fucking skinny ass with a sock on my dick, and I'm smacking them with the sock and all this sort of stuff. And this one drunk girl was so aggressive and kept really trying to rip that off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I should have sued her ass.
Yeah. Totally. It's weird, right?
It really is
looking
weird.
Looking back, at the time, it came and went. But on paper, you got a lawsuit.
I mean, the Weinstein thing, I get that. The Cosby thing, I get that. The Louis one, I don't really get.
Didn't you jack off into a plant in front of a bunch of...
Apparently 4 different people said that he would masturbate in front of them. Everybody had heard it.
Yeah.
But 3 of them knowingly admit that he asked if it was okay if he did that.
Yeah. They admitted?
Mm-hmm. And then one said he never asked. One said that he never asked. But I'm like, well, then what's the beef here? They say that he could lose up to $100 million in revenue from everything that he got fired from.
He still got $100 million.
I'm not saying he's not rich.
Yeah.
I'm saying that the next week after the first trial for Bill Cosby, the next week Bill Cosby was doing a theater gig. Theater. Not doing stand-up at some club.
Yeah.
8,000 seat theater gig.
Recently.
And he, dude, like a month after his first court
and sold it out, or was
I mean, it was packed. I mean, sure, there was heckling and people were protesting here and there and whatever. Yeah. But I'm saying that guy raped.
Yeah.
At least 30 people. The numbers you hear are in the 60s.
Yeah. Well,
60
had
people
like 50
drugged
years of rape.
and raped people for a half of a century. And this guy's working. And Louis beat off in front of 3 people that he asked, is it cool if I do this?
Well,
and they said, yeah.
No,
and now this guy can't get a gig?
They're using Cosby as a kind of a worst-case scenario, but that's not even the worst-case scenario. There's far more sinister
absolutely.
Characters out there. And, just don't fucking rape chicks.
It's pretty easy.
Just don't rape chicks.
I mean, 45 years, I haven't raped anybody.
I fucked a dead guy's mouth for a bottle of vodka.
That's not rape.
But I couldn't get hard, and I was laughing so hard, so the thing, I ended up losing the bet anyway.
Well, what are you going to do? You didn't even get the vodka?
No, I don't even drink.
Wow. Why? That's interesting. Why would you make that bet?
Actually,
it was because of the dead guy. You were into him.
2 years.
Literally.
December 31st, I haven't had a drop.
That's tomorrow. 2 years tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Ugh.
God, I can't believe it's New Year's already. This year went fast.
It is fast, isn't it? But we'll end up at the store for New Year's.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
I'll be there tomorrow. We're doing the band.
So we'll explain some of this. Don Barris is like the... he's awesome.
Mm-hmm. I love Don Barris. Windy City Heat's one of my top 5 favorite comedies of all time.
I also enjoy Holtzman.
Oh, Holtzman's great. Holtzman's hilarious.
If you get a chance to see Brian Holtzman, do yourself the favor and go and watch that. That's all I want to.
Mm-hmm. And Don Barris.
Yeah. There's some really cool people coming through that club right now.
Yeah. It's cool to see Chappelle there all the time. Bill Burr is there all the time. What's that?
He's jacked.
Sure is jacked.
I didn't recognize him.
I mean, his arms
I look
are
him
pretty
straight
big.
in the face, I can't tell it's him.
Mm-hmm. And he's cool because he genuinely just hangs out there like we all do.
Yeah.
Like you'd think he would I saw him go on, when he first started hanging out there again, I saw him, he went on at 10 o'clock, right? Uh-huh. And he was there
last night.
He was there last night. I was there 2 nights ago too. So he went on at 10 o'clock, and then I'm going through the kitchen to go to the back area, and that's where you can smoke pot back there, and not get in trouble. Employees and comics can go back there and smoke. So I'm walking through there. Now it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm walking through the kitchen. I'm going to go back there and smoke a joint or something. And Dave Chappelle is just sitting on the counter in the kitchen, across from the bartender, just sitting there, and he's got his little speakers, and he's just playing music, and he's smoking cigarettes inside.
Yeah.
And he's just sitting there. So it's 2.5 hours later. And I walk by him, and I'm like, hey, I don't mean to be rude.
But could you get your ass off my textbooks at school in the morning?
I'm like, why are you still here? You went on a couple hours ago, you just hanging out? And all he said to me was, man, sometimes a nigga be getting lonely.
Yeah. Yeah, and be around like-minded people. Yeah. And
you're like, oh, yeah, but that's totally cool, Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
You don't think of Dave Chappelle being lonely. You don't think of other famous comics wanting to just hang out at a comedy club and smoke and drink and talk to other comics.
Yeah, it's kind of like...
so it's kind of cool to know that you always will have that in you, no matter what. We're still just the comics hanging in the back of the club with other comics.
I've heard Stanhope mention numerous times. He goes, I could always quit comedy, but I can never quit comedians.
I like that.
There's something about that community that it's
it's oddly competitive, but it's oddly, there's a brotherhood of don't fuck with us.
Yeah, it's like sleepers.
Mm-hmm. You could walk into the patio of the Comedy Store, and a comic that you're not even not a fan of, but let's say you don't even get along well with them. Or maybe you'd be like, that's the one guy I don't really like very much, or whatever. And you walk in there, and you see a drunk audience member or something swing on him. Dude, you're the first one in that fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're the first one to come attack that dude. Even though but just the fact that he's a comic, there is some sort of respect that I have for people that are willing to sacrifice everything that we do to do this. And I know that sounds silly, but we sacrifice a lot to do this.
Yeah.
You don't think I could have been something else.
Sure.
You know, this did choose me. I do think this chose me. But you don't think I could have been a doctor, a lawyer, a successful real estate salesman? You don't think I couldn't have a fucking Porsche or a mortgage or a wife or a family? I sacrificed all of that shit to do this. Hell or high water. Famous or not famous. Rich or not rich. I just have no choice.
I get none of that.
And I respect everybody that's willing to sacrifice having a sense of normalcy to their American or Canadian life or whatever it is, to do this, because there is no normalcy when it comes to this. You know what I mean?
It's part of the reason we're attracted to it, I think.
I think so as well. I agree with that.
We outseek the abnormal.
It definitely makes me feel alive.
Thank you for being on the show.
Dude, thank you for having me. I always do this. And check out my new podcast, 92.7 The Pod. It is a show I do with my friend Sarah Lehman. It is basically a fake morning radio show about a fake city called Town. All the commercials are fake. All the guests. I'd love to have you come on and play something.
Yeah.
Everybody plays.
I would love to play the local cobbler.
I think you would be a great local cobbler.
Shoemaker.
Of course. Of course.
Like the John Wayne Gacy of cobblers.
I like that. I could see, yeah, exactly. Or just town serial killer. I could see you doing that. Or serial rapist, perhaps.
Or Todd Sweeney, like the barber that made the meat pies out of people.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, but anyway, where can people find you?
At the Teeb on Twitter. TheTeeb on Twitter. That's probably the best way to get a hold of all my dates and all this sort of stuff. I'll be in St. Louis 18th, 19th, and 20th of January with Steve Renazizi at Helium Comedy Club. Check us out there if you're in that area. And listen to my new podcast, 92.7 The Pod. It's at allthingscomedy.com or anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Fantastic. I posted some dates in April for Canada. So there's Vancouver, Calgary, St. John, and Halifax or something, and maybe something late April. In the Ontario area, Jayson Rouse 666 for all your online horseshit. Happy New Year, everybody.
And happy birthday, sir.
Well, thank you. And thanks for the small, mighty group that listens to the show. I appreciate everybody, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at some of the shows. Shout out to Teebs.
Love it.
I don't care what society thinks. They're nothing anyway. They're no better